directions of these two signs are not exactly the same. Actually, they are showing different directions, and this is not a very desirable situation, but it happens rather often. So, I would like to talk who needs whom, whether science needs policy or vice versa. What is the communication between science and policy, and how could it be improved? And then some thoughts about climate, water, and science and policy in this context. So first, who needs whom? It's a nice couple and it looks like they are made for each other, but actually they have rather different characters. The young lady likes to walk alone often, likes to look different things, and this doesn't, the guy doesn't like this very much, because he needs somebody who would support him, who would direct him. So these are different expectations from both sides. But as the guy is close to the government, he has also the wallet in his pocket. And that's the mechanism how he can attract the other partner. So regarding the money, there are two possible options. One is that science is totally for policy needs and plays the music that the policy really requires. I have worked for 8 years at the Joint Research Center, and this is a European Commission institution that really is the institution meant for policy needs or policy support. And even the structures are often reorganized when a new directive comes out and needs support, then also new groups are formed. I belong to the group that first dealt with Water Framework Directive intercalibration exercise, and later with climate change integration into the Water Framework Directive. So this is really the science for policy needs, but there is also this academic science which may have different funds, and if this academic science becomes too strong, it may start feeling like the enlightened monarch who doesn't care anymore whether the masses are following him or not, or whether his science is needed for someone else. So this is the other extreme. How it should work in ideal situation? It should work in this way that first the scientific information accumulates, then it's periodically reviewed by experts, but this will not be understandable or fitting the policy needs yet, so it must be translated because the jargons are different that are used in science and policy. And for this purposes are the assessment reports and recommendations, and then these should be communicated to governments and public, and there have been also, or need to be some public discussions And then when there is need for more advice, then this will also activate some new scientific research. And on the other hand, the science itself can identify gaps, and also this will feed into new research. And finally, policy and action are informed by the best available science at the time. So this is the ideal scheme, we would say. But it happens very often that there starts a circular system that science identifies gaps, and if the policymaker asks for advice, scientists say, oh, we can't say it yet, we need more research. But more research usually means 1 year, 3 years, a new project to really find out the causes and consequences. So there is a clear communication error in this case. And scientists are still hoping to put a very big golden egg finally at the end of this process. It doesn't also work in a very linear mode. So according to the linear model, science, when it's well communicated, it should create an action. But it doesn't work in this way. We may ask why. And there are really several communication barriers in the science policy interface. And really these are two different worlds. Science is about understanding the world. Policy is about managing the world. Here also Eric told about uncertainties. He was very happy if he could explain that we have a probability of getting clear water. Probability is increasing by 20%. But I think the manager will not be satisfied with this. If the target is to get clear water and it's not reached, then it's failure. So, in science, failure and risk may be acceptable and are very normal components of the work. But in managing or in policy, failure and risk are intolerable. Scientists always or often underestimate the complexity of policy. They think that policy is something very simple compared to science. But in fact it isn't, because in policy the managers should tackle every single problem, every single lake, for example. That's very, very different from science, who make big generalizations on the basis of data. On the other hand, policy overestimates the precision of science. Often the scientific results are not very precise. We can just say that it's a probabilistic result. Scientists have no definite time limits for their research. In management, tasks are mostly with very strict deadlines. And all these are barriers that really make the communication difficult. Still, what type of evidence can science provide, or how science can help policy? Starting from the upper box, the problem definition, science can bring new evidence of the magnitude of the problem. Then can find also the cost-effective options for policy, new possibilities to develop policies. Then when it comes to the implementation, there are several new technologies or methods or modeling needed. For monitoring, science can provide indicators, data, but also modeling and processing of data. And then finally, the results must be evaluated, and again, science can give a helping hand here. So practically all the phases of the policy cycle can be supported by science. Now coming to the closer to water, here I just have a list of milestones that I could recall in the process of developing the adaptation policy. For me, it started in 2004 when I was at the Joint Research Center, and the European water directors asked the general question, what will be the possible impacts of climate change and whether they can affect goals of water framework directive. Then in 2007, the Green Paper was published. The European Commission likes such color papers, green, white, red. So this was a Green Paper, this was a preliminary one. Based on this, the Commission also organized a strategic steering group on climate change and water with a task to prepare the guidance for river basin management and changing climate. Then in 2009, the white paper came out for the program document. And at the same time, or in the same year, also the Urban Implementation Strategy Guidance, River Basin Management and Changing Climate came out. That is, until now, the central document for how to include climate issues into management. In the same year, the River Basin Management plans were due in 2009. Now, after the first assessment round, European Environment Agency made a State of Water report. It's a big synthesis report based on the assessments made in the first River Basin Management Plan. And this summary was a blueprint. It was more a political program, again, a blueprint to safeguard EU water resources. And this year, finally, the EU strategy on adaptation and climate change came out. So, this is the first report in 2005. Our group at the JRC was responsible for the lakes part. We also based our work mostly on the flying project that was running at that time. And the main messages for our lakes were that responses of lakes to climate forcing is most coherent for physical parameter, means temperature, for example, increases coherently. The chemical regime also changes, but it's more type specific and depends on local conditions. But it was concluded that biological changes induced by climate change are inherently unpredictable. As you have heard today, there have been several regularities already mentioned also in the sphere of biology. So the science is going on and new facts are coming up. So it's much more developed compared to this 2005 report. And now we know already several things about biota and can also make some predictions. So how will this all affect the 7, we analyzed the typology and assessment parameters that were in this Water Framework Directive, and found that practically all of them were potentially affected by climate change. And we published a warning that ignoring these climate change effects will have strong implications for the typology and quality assessment. So this is the scheme how the Water Framework Directive originally describes the process. Here in this figure is the process of eutrophication starting somewhere in the 40s or 50s. It's expressed as chlorophyll concentration on the y-axis, and at a certain moment when the restoration measures are applied, the system should return to the good status. This is the ideal target by 2015, in 2 years. So now, when the climate change comes on top of this eutrophication pressure, it shifts the baseline to a certain extent, and also shifts the status. And now we should really strengthen the restoration measures to still try to achieve the good status. And only if this is impossible, there is a possibility to also shift the targets, move the targets. But only in the case when really very clear evidence that targets cannot be achieved anymore because of climate. So the policy framework around water management is mostly because we have the risk to lose ecosystem services. Otherwise, we could leave the waters in peace. So this equation, on the other side of this equation are the local hazards plus the climate change hazards. And the hazards themselves do not do the job, but the lake should be, or the water body should be also exposed to the hazards. And they have to be vulnerable to these hazards. So all these components must be in place. So far, the Water Framework Directive assessment and monitoring is dealing with this upper block, local hazards, and not with the climate change. So, and if the status is less than good, then you need to apply some restoration measures, and the policy comes into play, and try to reduce the local hazards or the effects. This has certain costs. The restoration measures are usually quite expensive. Now, regarding climate change, there are mitigation policies in place to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. This has also certain costs. And then for reducing the exposure and vulnerability, there are several water protection and adaptation policies, and also those have certain costs. And now we have to look at this box again and ask the public if they are satisfied or if they agree with these risks, or they accept to pay for removing these risks. And then you have all the costs of these measures on the other side, and this is the cost-benefit analysis that should be made by the Water Framework Directive. And finally, you have to monitor also the effectiveness of measures. So this is now the full picture, which includes also climate change impact. has first 11 guiding principles for the Worker Framework Directive. Under each principle are described specific actions and also given examples to better understand what is meant with these. But it has also guiding principles for flood risk management and for drought management. So all aspects of climate change are included here. It has two quite remarkable statements in the text. And one is that apart from exceptional circumstances, it's not expected that within the time frame of Water Framework Directive implementation, a climate change signal will become statistically distinguishable from the effects of other human pressures. That's a serious statement, I would say. And we have seen several reasons for that. So we may ask why it is so. And the explanation is in the fact that global warming reinforces acidification. So they really act along the same pathways. And most of these pathways were also described in these previous presentations, like this more small fish, less zooplankton, more cyanobacteria. The nutrients are here in the center. That means really we need to reduce the nutrient loads. That's how we can also tackle the climate impacts. So we may say that if the mechanisms are similar measures should also be effective, and we need to reduce nutrient load. Are we really so weak in science that we cannot distinguish between these two effects? Actually, we have several ways to distinguish, and just some of them. If we have a really long time series, like for this lake, it's one of the large lakes in Estonia, from where biological data, monthly data start already from 1964, and we have monitored it until now. And in the end of the 70s, we could see that there was a big change in phytoplankton. And there was a continuous increase in pressure in eutrophication, but for a long time no change. And suddenly everything changed, new dominance came in, and here this figure shows the main triggering factor, that was the water level that increased by more than 1 meter. That is enormous increase for a shallow lake. And after that, the system switched to another stable state, and is until now, although the eutrophication pressure has been reduced a lot. So the guidance suggests monitoring of reference sites, because reference sites should be without human impact, and if something changes there, it must be because of climate. The problems with this approach are that there strictly do not exist any reference sites. Human impact is everywhere. And the second aspect is that studying reference sites doesn't give information on how impacted sites will respond to climate change. The third possibility would be comparing lake reactions in contrasting years, and with these more extreme events and extreme years, we have got a lot of material. We need only 2 years to make already some analysis, and this will give us a hint about possible direction of change. But the main shortcoming is that the effect of a short-term impact may be different from that of a long-term change. Then, like in the project Climb, we had these coherent studies where a number of lakes, the reaction or changes were were studied at the same time, and if you really see a similar change in a number of lakes over a large area, you can kind of think that it's because of climate. And there are several parameters that can be measured now using remote sensing techniques that also gives a good possibility to use this method, for example, for ice changes, ice cover changes. Still another method, if we know that one of these impacts, like the human impact or climate impact, we can determine a series to study the other half of the impact. And here, the upper figure shows the nitrate concentration in Lake Windermere and the use of nitrogen fertilizers. Of course, they are well correlated, but if we detrend this series for the fertilizer use, then we still find in this residual strong signal of the NAO, or the North Atlantic Oscillation, that is the climate index. In Refresh, we had studies in a climate gradient, that is another method how to distinguish between human impact and climate change or climate differences, the effect of climate differences. Now the second statement of this guidance document says that it's likely that indirect pressures arising from human responses to climate change, both adaptation and mitigation, will have a greater impact on water bodies than the direct climate pressures. So this is a rather weird situation. In course of adapting to climate change, we make even more harm to our waters. And these indirect pressures include damming and elevated water abstraction for irrigation, new flood defense infrastructures, intense production of energy crops, for example. The only thing we have to do here is minimize conflicts between measures, and that's why we really need to check what measures we have applied, because some of them may be conflicting. And this is one of the latest documents, the blueprint to safeguard your water resources. This also names two most widespread pressures on ecological status of water bodies, and these are pressures that originate from hydromorphological modifications to water bodies and pressures that stem from over-abstraction of water. So both are adaptation behaviors. And at least to my mind, eutrophication pressure is very much underrepresented in this document. And in our Refresh project, we would like to stress this aspect more. So now, this is the title of the Refresh project here that was shown already several times. One of the first analysis we made in this project was to look into the first river basin management plans. We analyzed 18 of them and tried to find out what kind of measures have been applied and what has been the climate adaptation strategy. And the approaches were very different. For example, Estonia and Latvia fully excluded climate issues. Germany, which has the best climate competence in Europe, also discussed issues very modestly. Danube countries concluded that climate signals are already sufficient to act beyond existing scientific uncertainties. The best way was how these things were analyzed was in the plans of UK and Ireland, and they had really made a very profound work. They made really a very profound analysis of their program of measures that is POM in jargon. It's the climate checking of POM. So, and the aim is really to choose such actions that remain effective within a range of future climate conditions. First, we need to know what are the projections for climate, how it will change in your area. And the second step is that we have to think about how this would interact with each of our proposed measures. And after that, we can classify our measures as win-win, no regrets, low regrets, or finally regret measures that are not really desirable. The second report was that we really collected all possible measures from the literature relating climate change and water, and we got more than 450 of them. We have put them into a database, so it's a searchable database by a number of different factors or parameters. And by the end of this project, most of this information is also included into this climate and freshwater info webpage, where separated the information is given by rivers, lakes and wetlands, and also for different climate regions. And if you go deeper, you will find also measures and also the references which it's based on. In Refresh, we've also had to formulate some guidelines for the development of adaptation, mitigation and restoration strategies for lake, and we decided to use a similar structure as in the main guidance, so that means we formulated some guiding principles and also some actions and examples. Just I will go through some of the main guiding principles. The first is that has been already mentioned several times that critical loading limits in lakes have to be lowered in a future warmer climate as natural mechanisms that control phytoplankton development weaken. And this is a well-known figure that shows that even nitrogen becomes important. Until now, mainly phosphorus has been considered important for creating blooms, but in the future warmer climate also nitrogen is very important. And the mechanism how nitrogen will affect will be also, or why this effect will increase is also different for northern and southern lakes. In one it's more loading from the soils, and in the other it's just concentration because of evaporation. The second guiding principle is that we have to be aware of dominant cascading effects in our lakes, and here we also have asked for including zooplankton in the monitoring scheme that was left out in the first version of the directive, and also to follow changes in fish feeding types and size structure. And here, this is a paper we published and zooplankton, and there are several indicators shown, very simple indicators how zooplankton could be used in assessment schemes. For fishes also it has been shown several times that fishes become smaller, there will be more omnivores, and they will be more linked with littoral vegetation, and finally the zooplankton is moving out and is eaten by fish who are outside, so there is no refuge anymore for them, and the stronger pressure on zooplankton will finally result in more phytoplankton and the turbid state of lakes. The third guiding principle is that we have to consider geographic and type-specific differences. Here you also heard several examples where southern water bodies behave differently compared to the northern ones, both lakes and rivers. The concept of sensitivity of water bodies is not very clear so far. The exact meaning is not well defined, but there are three main types of reactions occurring in lakes, which are described as where the term sensitivity is commonly used. First is a fast and sensitive reaction. Here it's a reaction of water temperature in a shallow lake after ice breakup. So here we have the ice breakup time, and after that air temperature and water temperature are practically one-to-one related. So based on this we can say that shallow lakes are not sensitive as they react immediately to changes in air temperature. A different story is with deep lakes because they have a certain memory, and they memorize, for example, this period here in winter when the water is fully mixed, and the temperature the water gets at that time will stay in the bottom layer for the whole year. So these two weeks here are really important. And we may say that deep lakes are most sensitive as their exposure to pressure is prolonged from this memory. And the third way to define sensitivity is that people have an alternative stable state system. When the system is in one of these states, it is rather stable. But when it reaches the top, it becomes very unstable. So, and we may say that lakes close to the threshold levels for breaking their resilience can be considered most sensitive. And each of these statements are right in a certain sense and should be considered. So, I have four take-home messages of my talk. First is that it is better to have science-based policy than policy-based science. And the communication should be improved between scientists and policymakers. Management strategies should be regionalized. We cannot apply the same strategies in the south and in the north because the conditions are so much different. We have to alleviate direct human pressures on water bodies because this is the only way we can also tackle climate change impacts. And more attention should be paid on prioritization of measures to avoid adverse impacts on water resources and ecological status. Thank you. Good.
We have.
Good
But in fact, we have one.
Good communication. Oh.
Okay, good communication. Well, you said that we have to communicate. Peter.
Aslında bir soru politikayla alakalı değil ama su çerçeve teklifinin uygulanmasına ilişkin olarak referans değerlerin kullanılması ile ilgili bir şey soracaktım. Gerçekten her tipolojiyi temsil eden referans koşulların bulunması oldukça güç. Bu anlamda tipolojilere özgü sınır değerler belirlenemez mi? Yani her göl tipolojisi veya her akarsu tipolojisi için belli sınır değerler alıp referans değer aramasak diye düşünüyorum ve direktifte gelecekte referans koşullar dikkate alınmayacak mı? Teşekkürler sunduğunuz için.
So the type-specific approach has been generally accepted or taken up by the Water Framework Directive. That means each type should have its own reference value. And there are different ways how to find or how to define it. I know that it is one of the most complicated tasks, but without this it gets to a very